With the enhanced engine performance and fuel economy of newly reformulated TriClean gas from Citgo, you're good to go. But good to go where? Exotic bird shopping? To your Tuesday night bowling league?
Woo! That's a turkeys.
Good to go try your luck at bingo.
G32.
Bingo!
Good to go to a lumberjack competition.
I'm gonna move my car.
New top-tier TriClean gas from Citgo, the most advanced fuel we've ever made. Now you're good to go.
Drink it in, man.
Back, pressure time. Gonna get hit. Gonna go down. Sack back outside the 50-yard line. Siggy did it.
Drink it in, man.
He's got a man wide open. Golden at the 10. Golden at the 5. Golden to the house. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. There it is. Been looking for that all night. Cornbread. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid, what is going on, everybody? We are back, and I'm here with Grifka. Grifka, we're coming off a big W. We got lots more to talk about on the Koolaid cast. What's going on, man?
Hey, same old, just living the dream.
But it's not same old, Grifka, because today we are recording Wednesday night, and our Lions this morning. Bobby Quinn, I have been calling it, saying this guy's got to make a deal, and he's got to make a deal for a impact or a big name, preferably a defensive guy for this team. Word comes out this morning. Bobby Quinn trading for Snacks Harrison, big defensive tackle, run-stuffing guy. Seems to be, to me, exactly what we need. I mean, what'd you think when you heard this? And then what'd you think when you heard we only gave up a fifth-rounder? You had to love it.
When I first heard it, I was pretty surprised because it seems like the Lions just don't make trades like this in the middle of the season. So I was pretty surprised. And then I went and looked up to see exactly what they gave up, hoping it would be, nothing too overpriced. I knew Snacks was a good player, good run stuffer, was all pro a couple years ago. Probably one of the better, if not the best defender on the Giants. So I was I was pretty happy about the trade. Then I saw they only give a fifth-round pick. It's the one they got for the Laken Tomlinson trade, the one from the 49ers. So I was even happy about that. We only gave a fifth-round pick for him. So I was pretty ecstatic that happened. Put a big run stuffer in the middle. I was pretty happy.
Yeah, man. The cool part was, so I was watching Good Morning Football while I'm, working on some things this morning. And as they cue to break, they're like, somebody from our New York Giants. And I say, our New York Giants, just because they live there. Come on. And they're like, a big name is going somewhere else, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm thinking, did they really get aggressive and I trade in a big star, or is it some nobody? And they said, this guy's name, and I'm going through who they might be, and all of a sudden they go, and he's heading to the Detroit line. And it's just one of those moments where you're just kind of like you said, you really didn't expect it, kind of off the radar. It wasn't really many rumblings in regards to that kind of trade. And bam, there it was. I was pretty happy. I mean, here's a couple things from my end. So I was going through Twitter, and I guess Jeff Risden, who again, this guy, he's always got some good takes and good info with Lions Wire over there. I guess he had put out an article, I want to say yesterday or recently, and he had my 4 or 5 trade options and one that he really wanted or whatever, and he wanted Snacks Harrison. So that's incredible. They called that out, and then it happened a day or two later. So that's pretty cool. But for me, I mean, the part I love the most about it is not only that the Lions are doing something they normally don't do, but I feel like they keep building a team in the midst of trying to win right now, and they addressed an exact weakness. You know what I mean? They didn't go out and get a flashy receiver. They didn't trade Amir Abdullah and get a bag of peanuts back. They said, we're having trouble stopping the run. We don't have enough, remember big nasties, or what do we call them, dogs on this team, people that are just football players that make plays. And I feel like they went out and got one. My only thing when I first heard it was DT for me is not like an elite position. You've heard me talk about it: defensive ends, corners. The skill guys that really make plays, score touchdowns for you are the most important. And DTs, I always like to sort of get by without a big salary or without kind of an aging player. But like the more I thought about it, the more I heard today, it was just kind of like, man, this guy's kind of just getting to 30, which is a little bit old. We're gonna go. Let's give the people his contract right now, Grifka. So $4.5 million this year, $7 million next year, and then after 2019, when I read up on it a little bit more, is when you can either get in or get out. And 2020 is kind of like an option. You can pick it up if you want, or you cannot. I mean, that jumps up to $9.2 million. So, I mean, we got him basically for 2 years. He fits a direct need. He's kind of a nasty football player. I mean, we could go down all the stats where he's like second in rush defense this year. He's always been in the top, whatever. He's a top 7, I think it was, defensive tackle this year in regards to Pro Football Focus and whatnot. So I know I threw a lot in there, but man, he's got a lot he's bringing to the table. And again, another reason I love it is he's a defensive tackle. It's not like he needs a bunch of weeks to get up to speed. I mean, I would love to see him in the lineup this week, tell him what gap to get in and make some plays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm hoping it's not like one of those things he needs like a week to transition. I know I read, Pete Carroll was like, he can take his time getting to Detroit. So obviously Pete Carroll knows how good he is. But like you said, it's just learning the scheme, learning the gaps. It's just, I don't know if he's there. Hopefully, it doesn't take him that long to get up to speed. I read that against Atlanta, he only had roughly 30 snaps during the game. But once again, I don't know exactly where they were at the score. I didn't watch the Atlanta-New York Giants game to know what the score was, to see if the Giants were down, at some point where they needed to bring in a pass rusher, because that's not his job. He's not a pass rusher. I mean, he'll push the pocket up the middle a little bit, but he's not going to be the guy that he's not a Warren Sapp that's going to be, in there, making a whole bunch of sacks and stuff like that. So, getting this guy is huge. And like you said, having him for a couple more years, considering what Sylvester Williams was only a 1-year deal, and what Ricky Jean he was only a 1-year deal as well. So that it does fill a big need, especially this year and in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So super excited. It's always fun to kind of get this kind of news. Trades, the draft, you know what I mean? There's always kind of most fun when your team's bringing in new talent or kind of turning over that roster. But it's exciting to see. We'll obviously see how he does, but I think it's going to be an impactful guy, not a guy you might notice week to week in regards to splash plays. But, I mean, as long as we're not getting gashed in the run game and people aren't able to just cruise up the middle, on third and shorts, I think he's going to be well worth every penny. So super excited to have Snacks in Detroit. I mean, he's going to fit right in, I think, with the Detroit city and just everything we're bringing to the table. And, man, if he can help us get through, we got a big 5-game gauntlet coming up. So if he can help with that, that's going to be huge. So I'm sure we'll talk about it more either on this show or leading into the game this week or once he gets on the field. But super excited to see that. So, Grifka, we made a trade this morning. I mean, before we dive into this great dub that we had in Miami, trade deadline, do you see Tate going anywhere?
I sure hope not. I mean, I still think they need him. I know Galloway's having a good year, and Marvin Jones is Marvin Jones, but they still really don't have, a tight end and to really, catch the ball. I know we can talk about this in the coverage of the game, but I still believe they need Golden Tate on this team for them to be successful this year. And obviously with this trade, they're looking to make some hay this year. I think they can actually maybe do some damage. They just need to shore up that run defense. So I can't see them trading Golden Tate. Now, once, everybody has their price, I mean, obviously they have to get handed, King's ransom, Golden Tate's going to be out the door, but I don't think anybody's going to trade for him if they don't think they can re-sign him, if they're going to give a whole lot for him. So I can't see something like a 5th-round pick going for Golden Tate. So I hope he stays in the fold here.
Yeah, see, I'm torn on it because, I think they're heading in that new direction with Marvin Kenny and some other new pieces. I think that, he's still a good player, but, if you're not going to keep him around, it's always better to get something than just have him or let him walk. So I'm leaning more like, man, if they could either get something or if they could, be aggressive, that'd be great. The hard part for me is that, if we win this game against Seattle, I think the trade deadline's like that next week. I mean, you really don't want to be dealing pieces when you're really starting to sort of get rolling and you've got some, playoff aspirations, things like that. So that's why I see him staying around, is just they don't want to deal a piece like him and then not be able to win some of these close games or road games that'll be coming up without that extra weapon out there. So I don't see him going anywhere, but like I say, I'd sort of love to get some draft capital, or before Dallas picked up Amari Cooper, I mean, that would have been a nice destination for him on both sides. If he could have made a deal with good old Jared Jones, I'm sure he'd have given us a first and a second or something stupid like he did back for Roy Boy. Who knows what that guy's going to do. So I think Tate sticks around, but like I say, I'm more on the side of dealing him, or like I'm excited to see maybe what they put in that area once they do kind of let him go along his way. But if he stays, just make plays this year. That's all we want. I know last week we talked about Patrick Peterson, but again, we're recording here on Wednesday. Word just came out that he's definitely staying in Arizona, is what the word is. Excuse me. And he had to sit down with the owner and all that good stuff. So I don't know why that would change things. I mean, he should have stuck to his guns and tried to get out of town, and he would have been a great target. But I think this is our big move. I don't really see anything else happening for the Lions. You see him making any more moves here or there?
No, I mean, if all they do, it's going to be kind of maybe, no big moves, maybe to like short, maybe a little bit on that defensive backfield, a little more just for depth, depending on, Quandre's hand. I don't know how well Nevin Lawson, he's very hit or miss. They're obviously Tabor's going a little slower than what they like. So if they do anything, it's going to be kind of like one of those Deshaun Shed moves where they just bring in somebody to do some spot duty and stuff like that. I can't see them spending a whole lot of money on, a whole lot of picks on big names. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would like it if they got Patrick Peterson, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I think the NFL is shaking it up a lot more with trades. I think we will see a lot of movement at the deadline, which we're not used to. But, I think this was the Lions' move. I'm glad they pulled it and, keep their core together and see what we can do these next handful of games. So, Grifka, you kind of hit on it a little bit right there, where our injuries are at and stuff. I mean, as we come into Wednesday here, we got Theo with a DNP. I mean, kind of weird to come off a bye week and have this random knee injury and not be practicing at all and be out of games and stuff like that. We got Jared Davis with a did not practice, some type of calf injury. We hope he's okay because he's been really picking it up and playing some great football. And we got your boy, Grifka, Ziggy, limited. I'm sure you're looking forward to him playing Sunday. So any of those, you got anything else on injuries, or you got any words on those main three that we got?
No, I mean, Theo, did not practice, calf, just getting, they came off a bye a couple weeks ago, but still.
Theo's got the knee, Grifka. Theo with the knee.
Yeah, and Davis with the calf, but it's the time they just came off the bye, but it's you're getting to the meat of your season where every team's going to have nicks and dings and guys aren't going to be practicing, so I'm not too worried about it. As for Ziggy, well, once again, it would be nice to have him out there. But who knows? I guess we'll wait and see what if he can play this week, or maybe his paycheck's too heavy in his back pocket and he can't stand up.
You don't think that people want us to argue about him again for another half hour and me yell at you?
No, I mean, it becomes redundant and people are just going to tune out after a while because we both know how we feel on them. Well, you got a man crush on Ziggy, and I think he's a telephone pole that, is just there.
Oh man, well, we'll just tell the people to stay tuned, because when and if he gets out there and makes some sacks, I'm sure you'll be hearing from me here on the podcast about it.
Yeah, his sacks. Yeah, he'll be getting the grocery sacks for snacks. That's what he'll be doing. He'll be like, here you go, snacks. Here's your Doritos and here's your fudge rounds, and yeah, that's what he'll be doing. That's the only sacks he'll be grabbing.
All right, well, we'll see. That's a TBD on when and if he'll get out there, but I think he can only help the team. Here's my real quick take on Theo. Theo, again, was my one of my favorite Lions the last few years. Dynamic in the pass game, fun to watch, always kind of making some splash plays, get us over the top in some of those comebacks that we had. But I gotta say, I was sort of happy to see that big O next to his name and out, because all I knew was that was going to be more carry on, and that's what they did. They got him the football, which we'll talk about. So that was actually, if he doesn't play, it's almost like a blessing in disguise, because they can't spread it out as much in the run game. They have to give the ball to 33, so that's pretty good. And then, like you say, I mean, we've talked a lot about Jared Davis on this podcast. He's really important, and I think he's showing growth and just really helping the team. So hopefully still pretty good across the board on injuries. I thought TJ came back and played really well. So winning in the NFL comes down to a lot of things, but injuries are really important, and we've always been snake bit. And I think, knock on wood, this year we've been pretty clean. And if we can keep it that way, that's where a lot of teams win or get in the playoffs, or the teams that stay healthy. So hopefully those injuries stay good. So Grifka, are you ready to talk about us going down to Miami and whooping that tail just like I said we would last Sunday?
Yeah, you predicted that, man. Obviously, the Heat didn't get to him as much as I thought it would. I'd have to give a big props to the 3 stars or whatever, if you're talking hockey style, 3 stars to the guys who spent the whole game holding up those tarps over the team on the sideline, because that is the greatest shoulder workout of all time. They probably couldn't wash their hair the next morning, and I mean I'd have to give those guys big ups for being able to do that for the whole game, holding up those tarps or banners or whatever they were to keep the team when they were on the sideline in the shade. So big props to those guys.
So before we jump into the game, since you brought it up, these equipment guys holding this, looks like they went to Home Depot like on Wednesday and just got some PVC pipe and the same. Like, here's what I don't get. Like, okay, so you can build your own shade, but you can't have like stands on it. Like, I don't get why they had to hold it. I mean, if they're gonna let you build whatever you want, we couldn't get 4 extra pipes that just went to the ground with a little weight. Like, I was confused by that, where they like let you do whatever you want, but there's like a rule maybe that it can't be stationed in the ground, so you must have human beings hold this up, because I thought
it must be more of
looked weird.
It must be more of a safety thing, if you're setting a pole in the ground, even if it's PVC. I mean, it's still one of those things that's it's more of a stable object than a person, getting cut down by a group of people that are running to the sideline to make a tackle or something like that. That's all I can figure. It's more of a safety issue that way.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. But I think that, if they could, I mean, the guys could sit next to these and it could still be movable. But I did think it was funny that they had to hold it up. But it's not something I haven't seen in the NFL before. I felt like I've seen that by other teams where they kind of create their own shade or they do different things. I didn't think that we're reinventing the wheel there, coming up with, the next light bulb. I thought I had seen it before. It's just like you said. And I'm sure there wasn't 3-4 guys the whole game. I'm sure they had some rotation going on there. But, hey, you held your arms up in the air for a while. Good job. But I just think it's a little proactive from the coaches, which is nice to see. And if it made a difference, I heard some of the players say it did, great. But to me, it was just kind of a funny side piece to the game. But, I mean, I know your number one concern was this heat, which, again, I felt like our Lions showed not only that early conditioning was good, but to me, I just never noticed it once during the game. I felt like they fought hard from top to bottom, and I never saw any type of fatigue or anything on my end. So,
yeah, 120 degrees in the sun is what they showed, in the pregame. So, having that shade on the sideline, that's I've watched the games where like teams will wilt in that heat, where the home team does have the shade on their side. So
yeah,
it was nice to see that did not happen.
Yeah, that was good. So let's talk a little bit generally about the game. Like, I felt like the Lions came out really well. I feel like they, I want to say it was their first drive. They went down and scored a touchdown. Then they got on defense and I think it was a couple stops before the Dolphins got any type of points or got going. I thought, we got to talk about him here in the beginning. Big Mike Roberts just comes out the woodwork. I haven't seen him in 4 weeks or whatever it's been. This guy runs a great route. Stafford just throws an absolutely, it wasn't even it was like kind of a high-low route with a guy in front and a guy in the back, and Stafford just picked the deep guy and put it right on him for a touchdown. So I thought that was great to see a guy that's been hurt come right out and do what we talked about, which is this guy scores touchdowns. So I thought that was big right off the get-go.
Yeah, Hey, I told you, Mike Roberts, and,
You told me.
he's going to have 5 touchdowns. He's already over halfway there with this 3.
No.
So all he needs is
Grifka,
2 more.
we got on tape. You had him at like 7, 8 or more, I want to say, but
I said 5. You were like, oh, he's an elite status, like
No,
awesome for a tight end of 7 or 8. And I'm just like, no, he'll have 5.
No, you didn't.
I said 5.
You didn't say 5. I think we need.
Yeah, I said 5. You go back and check it.
Okay, let's check the tape because you were definitely mumbled something about 7 or 8, and I said, whoa, that's like an all-pro.
No, you were the one all talking about 7 or 8, and I said, no, he'll have 5. So
anyway,
but yeah, still though, I told you, I wanted to text you during the game that. Once they hit him in the red zone, like I said, I'm like, red zone threat. He's not going to be that guy 20 to 20. He's going to be the guy 20 inside. So it's exactly what they'll use him for. He was the forgotten guy, obviously, on that touchdown. I mean, that was the biggest thing, though. I mean, nobody was on him. They were guarding everybody else out in the pass route, and even like Mark Schlereth said that. It was like, he was wide open. They just kind of let him go. They weren't expecting him. So. Teams might game plan for that now, but still, I mean, I don't think if you're running 4 guys out in the pattern, with the 5th guy being just the outlet, your running back, I bet they're going to be more worried about Kenny G, Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate before they think about Mike Roberts. So.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like one of the biggest things I love is that this offense. I feel like for a while the cool thing in the NFL was to get a pass-catching tight end and, like, think that they're going to totally just – and I was bought in on a little bit too. They're going to take the middle of the field. They're matchup issues. Like, I like how the Lions have flipped it on us, and now they basically have no real big threats at tight end. But I see these guys blocking. I see kind of just like a really low-level consistency out of the tight ends that, to me, is better than the hit or miss or the injury-prone tight ends we've had in the past. So I love what they're doing at that position. And, like, don't fool the people, Grifka, about you told me, you said, like, who was the guy? Like, I give you credit for Slay and a few of these other, ones you actually got right. But before the draft, I was calling Mike Roberts. I was calling him in the draft. I've been saying forever that he's just a red zone threat. He's got big hands. He's kind of a goofy player here or there, but he's going to impact the game because they're going to make a role for him. And you just piggybacked on that last week where you said if he comes back, he'll be able to get some touchdowns.
Yeah, and I told you he'll be a red zone threat. They won't use him 20 to 20. They'll use him 20 in. And that's you're right. Yeah. I just piggybacked on your statement.
Okay, so yeah, but yeah, that's always been one of my guys. I hope he can keep it up. We can stay healthy, and I don't expect huge numbers from the guy, but I love what I saw, and we might as well just transition right into it. It wasn't. I want to say I don't have it right in front of me, but wasn't it third quarter, Grifka, where they hit this guy again for touchdown number 2?
Yeah, and like you said, big thing. It was just everybody else was out in the route, and they just let him go. And it's nice to see. Nice to have a tight end who can actually catch the ball. That's always pretty big. I was pretty happy about that. That he wasn't. He made the touchdown catch. He celebrated a little bit, but then he wasn't acting like he did like the greatest thing in the world, like our former tight end. So.
So with that being said, Big Mike had 2 touchdowns. That was awesome to see. Like you say, sort of got lost in the shuffle maybe, but hey. The ball's thrown to you and you catch it, or Stafford, they probably knew that was a matchup. I know I heard him say that they had pegged Miami, wasn't covering some of those routes well, and they exploited it. So again, that comes down to coaching and film sessions and all that good stuff. So I love all of that. Let me talk about him. We can't go any farther in the game without talking about him. Kerryon Johnson, Grifka, again, right out of the get-go, this guy is slicing and dicing with his runs. I want to say that he popped one off the edge early in the game. And then he knocks off that 70-plus yarder again down the sideline. I mean, this guy continues to do it and continues to hit the whole hard. I mean, this is no joke with this guy.
You're right. It was. It's nice to have a running back, like you said. It seems like he explodes, through the hole around the end. That he's not slow. That's the biggest thing. First things first, I want to talk. This annoyed me the most while watching the game, and I'm a huge fan of Mark Schlereth. I think he calls a good game. But he's the color man, and he's just going on and on, raving about Kiko Alonso. Now, once again, I think Kiko Alonso's – I think he's okay. I don't think he's great by any stretch of the imagination, but he's just raving about it. Yeah, he's not that great. And he's just raving about the greatness of Kiko Alonso and like, oh, look at all these plays. And it was right. He really started after I think Kiko Alonso made a nice play in the backfield for like a 2-yard loss or something like that. Yeah. But then that one run where Kerryon Johnson had around the edge and he just pretty much like stiff arms, Kiko Alonso and throws him to the ground. Yeah. And then, then he gets like another yard or two before he's pushed out of bounds. And then afterwards, Mark Schler's like talking about like, he's sideline to sideline. He goes over, he stops Kerryon, then makes the tackle. And I'm like, makes the tackle? I'm thinking to myself, he stiff armed him. He just threw him to the ground. I mean, it was like it's almost like the worst part was when he threw him to the ground, he wasn't moving forward. He had like stopped his momentum and just like pushed him to the ground, and then took stepped over him, and then got another yard or two, and then he was pushed out of bounds. Like, oh, Kiko Alonso made this great tackle. I'm like, okay, man, yeah, okay. I don't know. Let's rewind that play and watch how he got pushed to the ground by the running back. Okay, so there's your all pro linebacker doing that. But anyways, it's nice to have a running back to be able to do that. I mean, for the speed that Javid Best had, he could never do that. Reggie Bush was shifty. He never did that. I mean, I know he tried it with, other running backs as well. Theo Riddick's never going to do that. Amir Abdullah's probably going to fumble the ball if he tries to do that. LeGarrette Blount probably could do that, but he's more of like, he doesn't really stiff arm. He'll cover up the ball and put his shoulder down into you is what LeGarrette Blount will do. But it's nice to be able to see a running back have that sort of power to be able to do that. And it was just that was my favorite run of the game, just where he pushed Kiko Alonso to the ground. He just like grabbed him by the jersey and just threw him to the ground and was like, "Get out of my way!" He punched him in the face and he took his candy and he got 2 more yards before he's pushed out of bounds.
Let me get in on this. First of all, you keep saying put him to the ground. I wish I had the Jim Rome sound clip. I don't know if you know this one, but the 911 call where she goes, "He came after me and put me in the ground." That's exactly what I thought when I saw it, and every time you said it just now. So that's awesome. But here's another one you'll love, Grifka. So I'm watching Good Morning Football this morning. Grifka, why don't we take a 2-second pause in the podcast, and you give your girl Kay Adams a little shout out. We know she's one of your faves.
Oh yeah, if she could be the sideline reporter for the Lions, I would get season tickets.
Yeah, that's Grifka's. Tori Petrie, I still got you ranked higher. We love you here in Detroit. But anyway, so I'm watching Good Morning Football, and they're showing that on Kyle Brandt's Angry Runs, which is always super hilarious, crazy segment. But he had an awesome take. It was either him or Nate, and everybody was chiming in about how, like, when Kerryon takes this run that you're talking about, and he gets to Kiko Alonso, he's like, you know what this is? This is when you're playing Madden and the guy starts to tackle you and you start mashing buttons, trying to get him off you, and then all of a sudden you just put him in the ground. I was like, oh, what a perfect, because that's exactly what it looked like. He was kind of messing with him, and then just bam, he just put him in the dirt. Incredible. So yeah, one of the better runs I've seen, got me off my chair. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was that was probably my favorite run by him all the game. I mean, yeah, he had he was busting off the long runs. And by the way, I just want to remind you, I did predict 100-yard rushing against the Dolphins this year. I mean, I thought it'd be his first one. I didn't think he'd do it. Thought it'd be the first 100-yard rusher for the Lions. I didn't know he'd do it against Patriots, but I did predict 100 yards, against the Dolphins. So, he had that by like halftime. So
yeah, incredible.
Some of those runs, but a lot of that credit I just have to also give to the offensive line. I mean, they opened up just some massive holes. It's not like he had to bust everything out around the edge or he was squeaking through like these half-yard openings. Some of those runs he had, the holes were just massive. And what was it? LeGarrette Blount's touchdown there on the goal line. We saw, earlier in the game they struggled to get in, but that was that one where, I mean, he like went in untouched. I mean, it was just a great run, from like the 3. Yeah. I mean, nobody even touched him. I think your boy Nick Ballore went up, blew out. I think it was Kiko Alonso, to be honest with you. And
it's a great block.
Yeah, great block. Just stepped around and walked in.
But don't sell the people short, because that's the Lions' job, to open up holes. And I've seen plenty of Lions running backs have a decent hole and stop their feet, slow down, make a bad cut, not get up in there. Like, to me, Kerryon Johnson, if they give him a hole, small, big, whatever, maybe he gets through that thing with speed, and then he's taking it to the next level. Now, I do have one minor issue. Kerryon, my man, you got to get to the house, boy, because that one down the sideline, it's like the second time that you got caught when it should have been a house call. Now, I'm not saying this guy has the blazing speed, which, again, I don't want him to. I love his physicality. I love his ability to catch, run, inside, outside, all that stuff. So I'm not expecting him to have incredible speed, but some of these, he's way out in front of the crew. I need to see him get to the end zone on a few of these biggies, or at least get him a touchdown later. But that was my only gripe. I mean, I thought he came out huge. That made a huge difference in the beginning of the game of just, having that running game, having those big splash plays. I mean, sometimes that's all it takes in the NFL, or 2 or 3 of those big, field flipping type plays to help you win a game. So I thought some of those are really big. I thought you hit on a lot of good things. So yeah, man, you just got to keep it going. And to me, the more volume is you see the more numbers. So it's pretty simple.
One thing, just to go back to the offensive line, give them a little props. See if you've seen that. I don't know if you've seen the highlight. I've seen it a couple times because I went and actually looked it up when I was listening to local sports talk today. And Matt Shepard was talking about it. He goes, everybody just watches, Matt Stafford hand the ball off, and then you're watching the running back. You're not watching the offensive line. He goes, go check out this play. And he talked about the play where Frank Ragnow, drove the defensive tackle 10 yards downfield and pancake blocked him. Oh, yeah. Go watch that. Go watch that play if you haven't seen it, and just watch Frank Ragnow. He just pushes him, man. It's like almost like out of a movie, where you'd see it in a movie, where you always see the hapless defender and the big offensive lineman just pushes him, and then just boom, just throws him to the ground. Go watch that play. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he's after he mentioned it, I went and I looked it up, and actually I've seen it online, a couple different things, put out there by a couple different sites, and yeah, Frank Ragnow just blows this guy back 10 yards and just then pancakes him. It's just a great block.
Yeah, man, he's been really picking up his game. So we want to talk about a couple plays or a couple things within the game, just kind of break it down a little bit. But before we get there, let's just Ragnow again, good to bring up his name, played well. You brought up your boy Nick Bellore, and I've always hated on him, but man, he had a great block in the hole there to get us a touchdown. But let's give him some general numbers, Griff. So we had 457 yards, 209 through the air, 248 on the ground, which you just gotta love that number across the board. And every time, I know I've been always talking up Carrion on this show, but LeGarrette Blount, every time he sort of was going up into the middle, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those 1-2 yard rushes. He kind of make a little move or get through, and then next thing you know, he's getting 10, 12. I kept yelling out, sweet feet, because this guy, I don't know what it is. He looks like he's going to just plod his way through the line, and all of a sudden he just gets the sweet feet, makes a little move, and he's up the field moving chains. So I loved what I saw from him too. But man, 248 between Carrion and LG in the run game was sweet. Stafford was the highest graded quarterback. I mean, this guy's putting up incredible QBR ratings. We got him at a 93.6 via, I want to say, I think I got that number from Pro Football Focus. And then Jared Davis, man, 91, highest middle linebacker for Week 7. I mean, you gotta love that, because I remember we talked about him on the show when he's down in the 30s. So he's really showing that speed and playing all over the football field. So any other numbers or any general things before we talk about a couple of these key moments, Grifka?
And just like you said, Jared Davis, I believe his game's really improved the last couple of weeks. I hope it's not just a fluke and he continues to rise that way. I think he's going to. He seems to be playing a little faster, seems to be reading those pass routes a little better. So maybe it's just one of those things that's, into his second year now. He's getting more of a speed of the game. So that was nice to see on that. And then, like you said, I think having a run game is big for Matt Stafford. It just allows him not where the whole game's on his shoulders, where he has to force passes. And, the team's playing so far from behind. That San Francisco game was probably that way, but let's just call the Jets game a fluke, because he hasn't played like that since. So he's having the run game has been a definite help for Matt Stafford as well.
Big help, man. We've said it forever. I mean, they got to keep it going, but a balanced game, and we also have a balanced team. It's not just now he's got the balance in the run game. We finally have enough skill guys that are all good at all different positions, that not only can you spread it out, but I mean, you can run and pass and then go play action. It makes a huge difference. So Grifka, we've been real positive on this show. We want to keep that going. I'm trying to get you there here slowly, week by week, of your positivity and not hating on every little thing. We missed it off the top of the show, Grifka, but before I got to jump back because we also had another football game this weekend that we need to talk about for a second. What about those Michigan Wolverines getting a big victory? I know you were hemming and hawing about all this different stuff. Did I call that too about them going in and just beating their tail, and you wanted to talk about everything under the sun and get all worried about it? I mean, come on now.
I was worried about that game, especially when they turned the ball over on like their 10-yard line, and then Michigan State had to do when they're patented trick plays because they can't score on regular plays. They have to use their trick plays to score. So, I was worried when it was 7-7, raining. I mean, and then Shea Patterson threw a beautiful pass down the sideline that Donovan Peoples-Jones took to the house. So, still, I mean, that was a good game. I mean, it was a good game. Real happy, though. I'm holding them under 100 yards offense. That's tough to do.
So the main reason I brought it up is, one, I want to kind of jab our Sparty listeners out there and just get some yak in because we've missed it for a few years, but I got to get a little trash talk and enjoy the victory. But the other reason I bring it up, Grifka, is I have a buddy, and in this situation, I don't think all the time, but in this situation, he's just like you. I'm sitting there watching the Michigan game. I start getting texts. Oh, Shea Patterson's terrible. Oh, he takes too long. He's just holding the ball too long. He's terrible. Bring in McCaffrey. And right now, it's like we've been winning the game 7-0. This is before the tie. And then he's just hating on the team. And I'm thinking, man, like, these are the only messages I get are all this negativity or, oh, I'm worried about D'Antonio. I'm this and that. Like, I feel like we were unstoppable on defense. I feel like Shea Patterson's the leader of this team. And here all I'm getting is negative. So it kept coming in. So finally I did what I have to do to you sometimes. I muted the thing because I didn't want to see any more of these messages. What do you know? Next thing, Shea Patterson up over the top, touchdown. You think I got a text about that good play? No. Then we start grinding them in the run game. No text. No nothing. And then at the end of the game, we win. And I'm just like, what do you guys say now? And it's like still nitpicking the team. So I'm just trying to tell that friend, you, all these people out there, like, we got to get some of this, like, it's so much easier for people to talk about all this negative when something goes wrong. Like, we got to enjoy the wins, enjoy the good times. So that's why I'm going towards the positivity today. We're not nitpicking this game totally. We do have a few things here we'll probably bring up, which are just things we want to do better. But, like, we got to get you there and other folks there of, like, that was a good Michigan win on the road against a tough rival team. Got to enjoy it. Can't worry about everything. You're never going to play a perfect football game. And I want that known here on the podcast too, is like, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but we can't always think the Lions are going to play a perfect game. And when they win, and when they win on the road, and when they win against Miami and other teams who have injuries or who aren't that good, hey, I love it. So I just want to get that in too before we get too much farther. So I'm working on you, Grifka, every week to get you there.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure I'll get the text the first bad thing that happens in the next game from me. But so a couple key things in the game that I noticed to kind of just scribble down a few things. Like, man, they called a penalty again on Nevin Lawson in the second quarter. They called it hands to the face. And, like, I don't know how many times. We've only played 6 football games, Grifka, and I feel like this is the 4th or 5th call that either took a first down or a touchdown or something big off the board. And then they go back to the replay and they show it. I mean, it's a total phantom. Like, I remember they showed Nevin Lawson. Like, there wasn't even anybody in the picture. He, like, didn't even put his hands on the guy at all. Like, I just can't get these calls. They're real frustrating when they're taking points off the board or just kind of impacting the game. I was furious about it. Another bad call.
Yeah, that was one of those things when they showed the replay. Even the announcers were kind of stymied by it. It's like, oh, it's right there, and you're just kind of like looking, saying, okay. I mean, I've seen a lot worse get away with it, but I don't know why, what happened there on that Nevin Lawson one. It just kind of continued to allow a drive, go, and then they ultimately scored, and and that was one of those things. Like, yeah, okay. I mean. We always me and my buddies always have a conspiracy. It's like just the NFL keeping the game close to keep people interested.
You got conspiracies, Grifka? Who knew? Where's my bell? Which folks out there I do have on order, and we'll probably have here next week. So the Grifka bell is going to make its appearance hopefully next week. So I can't wait for that. So man, who knew you had conspiracies? Bing.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knew? Yeah. Who knew? Who knew the NFL was an entertainment business and not just straight up? Okay.
So I went on my big positivity rant, and then I just, we talk about this terrible call by the refs, but I got to call out somebody on the Lions real quick, because this was one of those plays. Grifka made a great comment about go back and watch Frank Ragnow, go back and watch the Ballore block on the goal line. Those are good ones to go see if you missed it or you want to see it again. But in the second quarter, Grifka, there's 5 minutes left. I wrote this on my sheet. They ran a beautiful screen, kind of a delayed screen pass out to Carry-On. This thing is set up nice. Matt Stafford waited as long as he could, got the ball out to Carry-On, who made a nice catch. He's about to get up the field. Go back and watch this Graham Glasgow. It reminded me of the days of Dominic Rollover. He was running, he's out there, there's nobody on him. All he's got to do is cremate a corner. I believe it was a corner, maybe safety, whoever it was. And this dude just randomly sort of falls at the feet. It looked like a totally, not only terrible effort, terrible technique, terrible decision to go way low rather than just plow this guy into the fifth row. And Carry-On probably scores if he does. He just kind of randomly falls at his feet, totally misses him, and blows up the whole play. I was so frustrated by that, because not only did I have Carry-On playing in one of my big fantasy leagues and I love the touchdown, but it's just lackluster. You go back and watch it. I don't know. I mean, maybe he tripped or something, but it was just garbage. So Graham Glasgow, that was one of my big negatives. I just wrote on the paper. It's just wow, I'd never seen that from the guy, but it was rough.
Well, maybe he's a little slower because it was 120 degrees on the field. He wasn't as fresh if he was playing in 70-degree weather.
But it's not like he wasn't there. It's sometimes you see these guys get out late. He wasn't late. He was right there. The guy was right in front of him. All he had to do was get his hands on him, and it's game over. And I don't know what he was doing. So that was tough. And then again, since I've kind of complained about the refs, I might as well get this in. Hands to the face on our boy Ragnow when Kenny Jizzle goes up and just snatches that football out of the air for another touchdown. I mean, that was an incredible catch. I thought the ball was airmailed. And here goes our 6'4" up-and-coming wideout that just snakes this thing out of the air, and then we get the old yellow flag. And then we go back and watch it, and again, it's a terrible call. He might have just barely brushed him, if that. Oh, my goodness. I was furious about that, too.
Yeah, that was another hands in the face that announcers were like, yeah, that was pretty ticky-tack. It's just yeah, it was ticky-tack. And, I know plenty of people well, it's still a penalty. It's getting a speeding ticket for going 56 and a 55. It's just well, you were speeding. So it's
exactly,
yeah,
man.
Okay.
But this is again, I wouldn't be even bringing it up if it wasn't taking points off the board, or to me, and it's taking explosive, great plays off the board. I know you can't wait till the play is over to decide if you want to call everything, but you called a knick-knack, and then this guy makes what would be on his highlight reel, and instead it's nothing. I don't know, just these refs. I mean, we don't pay to see the refs, so you could call holding on every play. You could call some of these little knick-knack pass interference or holding downfield by corners. I mean, let these guys play a little bit. Come on. So. Other than that, like you say, I just wanted to – I think we hit on a lot of positives. I mean, I loved the big field goal by Prater. I felt like he had missed a couple, which were uncharacteristic of him. Hitting that big 50-yarder, I mean, that thing split the uprights. It looked beautiful from the get-go, and that was big. And I just thought from top to bottom, I thought they played well. I was never worried about them losing this game. I didn't feel, as I said earlier, that the heat came into play. Basically exactly how I saw it going in my head is how it went. We came out early. We ran the football great. Stafford played great. This defense stood up well. Osweiler even got a few more plays or a few more points than I would have liked. But to me, the game's never in doubt. Big win.
Yeah, that was pretty big. I mean, like you said, you called it. And it was nice to go on the road. It's like everybody says, it's always tough to win on the road in the NFL, no matter who you play. And actually, like you said, like I was talking, you go down to the heat of Miami. Big props to the guys holding up the tarps, keeping them cool as much as they could. And the team just stuck with it and went down to Miami and just kind of drove them into the ground and won the game.
Yeah. And this is a point too, Griffin, where you just have to, as we do this show and as we keep looking at football, like, yes, I think a lot of NFL games are always going to be within that 7-point or less, but there are times when you're just better than the other team and when you're going to win by more. So that's why I was so glad to see a bigger point differential too, just to show you that it's easy for us to come on here every week and say, oh, it'll probably be a 3-point game. Oh, it might be a 6-7-point game. Like, that's the easy way. Sometimes you do have to call out a beat down and a big win. And, to me, if they don't get some of those late yards and late scores, I mean, it's a bigger game. So, we can't have everything super tight. I mean, it's when it's warranted, no problem. But we're going to blow out teams, and we're going to get blown out every season a couple times. It's pretty much guaranteed to happen. So, most games are close, but not all games. So just keep that in mind when we're doing our predictions. And when you see a bad team and you see us having some mojo, like, this is what happens. So great win by the Lions, 3-3, heading home to play a Seattle team, which we'll talk about on the show Friday. And real excited. I mean, this is another one of those turn games coming up where you got back to even. Feels like, okay, we're starting the season over at 3-3. And what are you going to do about it now? So lots of big games coming up. We'll get all that to Friday and get more on that. So anything else to say about the game, Griff, before we move on? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right, perfect, man. Big dub. So what I want to do today, everybody, is, we always enjoy having Griff on the show and, kind of have fun back and forth, joking around. But I just wrote a few questions today to kind of pick the brain of Griffka, who's a lifelong Lions fan. He's seen it all. He's been through it all, as he's told you, all those sob stories, which I always make fun of him about. But we just want to hit him with a few questions and kind of just get his take on a couple things and whatnot in regards to the Lions. So you ready for this, Griffka? Are you going to be able to tell us some of your trials and tribulations and great moments? These are pretty positive questions. As I said, I want to be positive on the show. You ready?
Yeah, as long as they're positive questions where I don't have to remember the low lights of this franchise.
Yeah, I think I took those out because I knew if I said, like, Lions, if I left you too much leeway, you'd tell me about all the things that we all want to not remember. So my first one, though, is what's your best Lions moment, Grifka, or moments? Like, what are some awesome times you've had as a Lions fan over all these years?
Besides the one playoff victory I witnessed when they beat up on the Cowboys. Oh, gosh, the best part is I still remember where I was when I was watching that game. Remember exactly what I was doing.
Were you at the game or you watched it somewhere?
No, I was actually at my grandma's house. My family went to my grandma's house, so we were over there that day watching it. Actually, like, me and my brother were watching it, and like everybody else was like talking with my grandparents. So, yes. Yeah, but I remember that, watching that. Another game was where the Barry Sanders broke the 2,000 yards against the Jets, even though that was over, kind of the shadow of that game was Reggie Brown being injured and then almost dying on the field. But just remember that game, he was struggling against the Jets, and then he just broke off that long run in the second half that put him over the 2,000 yard mark. Finished that year. I mean, with over 2,000 yards. I mean, that was huge to remember. Gosh, was it? Even though I can't stand them, the year like they won like 7 in a row to make the playoffs. That was an amazing run right there. They were just putting up yards. Your favorite quarterback of all time, Scott Mitchell, had over 4,000 yards passing. I mean, he had better rated numbers than like Dan Marino and stuff like that. And he just, Scott Mitchell had, his career year there. And, Wayne Fonts, the big buck, I just remember the Detroit Free Press. The picture was always him with like a deer, like deer antlers, because they always called him the big buck because he was always being hunted to get fired every year. I remember all that. As a kid, I remember watching the game where Billy Sims karate kicked the guy from the Houston Oilers. That was pretty cool. Oh, gosh. Not too many highlights from the 80s I remember, to be honest with you. But, yeah, those are probably the big ones right there.
Good stuff. Grifka, what's the best Lions game you've ever attended in person?
The best one I ever attended? I mean, does it have to be a win? Let's see. the best one I ever attended was back at the Silverdome. I can't remember what year. I was watching a Lions Browns game actually, and my buddy was up from Cleveland, who's a big Browns fan, and we were watching the game, and our seats were in the end zone, and it showed one. It was on Barry Sanders he ripped off like a 55-yard, 60-yard touchdown, and it was like, how our seats now are in the end zone, so you can just like see the holes open up and you can see the play develop, and that's exactly what it was. It was probably like it was one of the times where Barry Sanders didn't have to make moves in the backfield. It was it was between the tackle and the guard, and the hole opened up, and you could have drove a Mack truck through that thing, and he took one quick step, jab step, boom, and he was through the hole. And I don't know where the linebackers were, but he ran by them and he outran the pursuit angle, and he went off for like a 60-yard touchdown. And my buddy, the Browns fan, he just looked at me and he goes, "We can't win this today." That's all he said. And that was just a great game. I mean, it was just the Lions beat the crap out of the Browns, and it was just a really great game.
Nice, very cool. For those out there listening, so for the last how many years have you been doing it, Grifka? Me and you probably like at least the last probably going on 6-7 years now, huh?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 6-7 years. I've had season tickets for a bit longer than that, but for the last 6-7 years, me and Grifka every year opening game, we're there tailgating and enjoying. So it's always been fun. It's always been cool to have you be consistent with that, and kind of us go down and just enjoy a day outside tailgating and some football. So those have been great games every week. But yeah, there's nothing like a good old Silverdome game back in your heyday, no doubt about it. Grifka, have you ever taken a road trip for a Lions game? You ever went on the road and supported this team? Were you too cheap?
Not too cheap, man. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, it's just, but you have other obligations. I don't have, indispensable income like that where I can just, I wanted to go to the Cowboys game this year with Chuck, but he was like, "No, I can't because of money." I'm just like, "Okay, man." So I just watched it at his house, but no, I mean, I would like to. I mean, I guess it would want to be the right one, maybe in a couple of years or whenever they go to Las Vegas, to go play the Raiders whenever they move there. That would be that'd probably be a pretty tough ticket. But I mean, once again, one of the dream ones would probably be like me and you always kind of chat about it. Whenever they play in London, going over to London to see a game, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, man, I know this is your segment, but let's do it, man. Let's set up a roadie. But I'm more for wanting to go to one of the NFC North. I want to go to Lambeau or whatever in the dead of winter and just do it up crazy with all those people and just enjoy out in the snow or kind of have that whole experience. So that'd be my choice if we do a roadie. But I've done a couple of road trips for the Lions, which have been fun. But yeah, me and you need to do that up. So.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Grifka, the best draft pick that you liked from the start this team took. So like a guy that you, as a draft led up, me and you have only talked draft the last handful or more of years. I didn't know back in the early mid-90s, 2000s, who you were thinking or where you were at with the draft. But I want a guy that like throughout the process you liked, you hoped the Lions would take. They took him, and they actually ended up being pretty good. I know that's kind of slim pickings, but...
I mean, are we actually talking, like, can we just, like, negate Barry Sanders out of there? Because I think every Lions fan loved the Barry Sanders pick. I mean,
yeah,
okay, so we'll take
deeper than that.
We'll take the Barry Sanders pick. I guess when I was younger, let's just go younger before I was really tracking the draft stuff. I really love the Chris Spielman pick. I mean, I know he went to Ohio State, and but it's one of those things. I mean, you still saw enough Ohio State games where I just thought he was really good. It's like you can realize talent, and it was just one of those things. I mean, when they got Chris Spielman, I was very, very happy about that. I really liked the pick, even though I was a little younger. You're younger than when they got Barry Sanders, but still, I really liked that pick. I mean, guys that I really liked. I mean, that actually hit. Geez, who trying to think of who. I mean, I like the Calvin Johnson pick. I know a lot of people bash that because like, oh gosh, another wide receiver, but I really like that pick. And I know you don't like him because he wouldn't sign your football, but and you're glad he's gone.
He quit on us, and he's broken down and old and overpaid.
Right, and the biggest, and I really like the Dominic and Sue pick. I was really happy about that pick. I realized they were both top 5 picks. But the one guy I thought that would really pan out and really do something when you really started following the draft, who I really liked. I mean, I really liked Bryant Westbrook out of Texas. And oh my gosh, he ended up being like, he was finally starting to come into his own, and then he blew out his Achilles against Minnesota, and he was never the same after that. But I mean, that year he was having a decent year. I mean, he really was. And then he, it was just one of those freak things, you always see, like where the guy steps back and he blows his Achilles. That's all he did. And he always hurt. But I just remember his first few years. Oh gosh, he was worse than Nevin Lawson. And I'm like, oh gosh. And then, but I was still in that Derek Oakley phase where like, give the guy a chance, man. Give him a few years before you call him that he sucks. And I was still there with him, but that was that guy. That was Bryant Westbrook. Because the Lions really needed a DB, and they got, Sean Springs was in that draft too, and like Sean Springs wasn't gonna fall to him, so they're like, yeah, well, we'll get Bryant Westbrook. And I was so happy when they got him, and then he turned out that guy couldn't cover a coffee table, and gosh, and then he was finally having a decent year, and he blew out his Achilles against Minnesota.
Yeah, the draft has become my favorite thing, and I think it's so fun to sort of, give opinions on these players. It doesn't matter how much you've seen in college or otherwise. Like, you really have no idea how they'll do when they get to the next level. So it's always super fun to go out on a limb and call out a guy, or, have a guy and then see him get picked by your team and see if he does well or not. But it's so hard to predict. I mean, I've had so many hits and misses like along the way, but Lions are really starting to hit on better players. But I just thought that would be fun. And like you say, we could go down the litany of ones we thought would be good and turned out to be bums. But some good names there you threw out. So we got to shut this show down, Grifka. But we got one more for you. Your favorite Lions player of all time, and you can talk your loving words for Barry if you'd like. But how about another person too that just is like one of Grifka's all-time faves?
Right. I mean, I was gonna say except Barry Sanders, because everybody knows Barry Sanders, but. I mean, I'll go with a couple guys that I really, really liked, and once again, Chris Spielman. I really like Chris Spielman, and even from my younger days, a guy I really liked, and I know he wasn't a Pro Bowler or Hall of Famer. I just thought he worked really hard, and I thought he did some good stuff for the team. Gosh, no, I can't remember his freaking name. It just escaped me because I was thinking of Chris Spielman. Ugh! It just drives me nuts, man. I can't remember his freaking name. The defensive tackle out of Pitt. Somebody's going to be listening going, that's who you're talking about. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Oh, gosh.
So, for my day, I believe.
I think it was. I know it was. But probably in more recent years, guys that I've liked. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Who, really? I mean, I really liked Ray Crockett when he was on the team. I don't know if you remember Ray Crockett. He was a cornerback. I thought Kevin Glover, you watched him play, he was a center. I mean, he was really good, very solid. I mean, I really liked him. But probably those guys right there from the younger days. I mean, recently, it's the same. I mean, I like Darius Slay, and I really like him, and I'd have to go back to Calvin and Dominic and Sue, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, man. Like you say, we had a fun show today. Exciting trade to talk about. A great win, a road win, a win that the Lions had where you felt like from start to finish that they were gonna have that game in the bag, and putting up another victory in the NFL is always important and hard to get. So that was fun to talk about, and then just getting some of your moments, memories, just kind of a true Lions fan. And everybody on the show, like I said, we have a lot of fun. We rag on each other a little bit, but Grifka, is a true Lions fan through and through, no matter what I say about him or what we say about each other. But he's always loved this team, always hung in there with them. So it's kind of cool to hear a couple things from you there just for our question segment today. So with that being said, Grifka, I think we need to get out of here, shut this show down. We're coming back with our Friday morning podcast that'll drop early in the morning, talking Seahawks, and that's going to be super fun. I got lots of takes, lots of important things to say about that game. Can't wait to get to that. So everybody out there, keep listening, keep hitting that subscribe button, keep sharing with friends, keep drinking that Kool-Aid. Isn't that right, Grifka?
Yes. Koolaid and cornbread.
Drink it in, eat that cornbread, and we'll be back on Friday for another show on the Detroit Koolaid podcast. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over.
What a comeback by the Lions!
Drink it in, man.